McDaniel can't move on it. Now he does. The shot, passing down. Rebound, score!
Hey, welcome to the Tone the Crease podcast, where we talk about anything and everything to do with the NHL. I'm SJ.
Willy Dubz here. Hope everyone's having a fun time on this. I think it's it's Saturday evening for us, so I don't know what time zone it is for everybody else, but hope everyone's having a fine evening, afternoon, morning. I don't know, whatever the hell you are. So
I mean, you can just check time zones by literally, you can just check time zones online. Everybody knows.
Well, I joke. I don't know which time zone each of our viewers are in, so I can't assume that. Can't make that judgment call, right? So just cover all bases.
Fair enough. All right. Well, today we're just gonna kind of cut through because the last one was like 3 hours long, so we're definitely not doing that this time. So basically, we're just gonna do again. This is like kind of part 2 of our fantasy hockey preview. Last time we did the goalies, which again went for 3 hours. This will not. This one now we're doing the defensemen. So we're going to kind of just cut into it here. So basically for defensemen, the stats we looked at goals, assists, points, power play points, shots on goal, hits, and blocks. I will say defensemen have come a long way. Like, this isn't the era where, like, Erik Karlsson was the only defenseman hitting above 80 points. And if you didn't get him, you just waited till the middle rounds to grab D-men. This isn't that era. Defensemen are scoring at a lot more plentiful rates than they used to. And because of that, there's an abundance of options. And there's even guys you can take in the first or second round and not feel weird about it, which is nice.
Okay, so maybe this is a question because again, I haven't played fantasy. I didn't play fantasy hockey probably back in that time frame. So I'm guessing it wasn't very common.
Back in my day.
Yeah, I know. I'm making SJ here sound a little old, but essentially, I'm guessing you guys never really took defensemen in the first round, eh? Like at least back in the Karlsson
let me give you an
maybe?
example, right?
Okay.
2011, 2012. That's 10 years ago, right? So I would have been 20 back then? Yeah. So yeah.
Okay. I
Okay.
wasn't even an adult yet by that time.
So just to give you an example, Erik Karlsson led the league in scoring. Guess how many points he had that year? This is an 82-game season, not the lockout.
Fuck, I don't even know. I'm gonna guess 75 or something. I don't know. Nothing crazy.
78
Okay.
points led the league in scoring for defensemen. Guess how many number 2 finished with?
51.
53, Dustin Byfuglien. And Campbell, 53, Chara, 52. But bear in mind, the second place defenseman had 53 points. Granted, Byfuglien did his in 66 games, but Campbell had number 3. 53 points in an 82-game season, was third in defensive scoring. That wouldn't get you anywhere near the top 3 in defensive scoring now.
Yeah, I don't even want to say.
And for people think I'm just picking.
You might not even get top 10 though, right? I almost want to say you may not even get into the top 10. Like if I pull up last year's, if I try to pull up.
Well, and for people that think I'm sample sizing stuff, 2013, 2014 was only 2 years after. Karlsson had 74. Keith finished second with 61. Weber finished third with 56. Right? This isn't. And then the year after was 82 games. The leading scorer for defenseman in the league had 66 points.
Was it also Erik Karlsson? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But my point being is defensemen weren't considered unless you had Karlsson, who at that time, because his scoring level was so much higher than everyone else's, was worth the first round pick. Because your argument at the end of the first round was, well, if I get Karlsson, I have a 30-point gap, 20-point gap on the next defenseman, right? Why not just take that and then take the best forward or goalie or do something like that? Now there's a lot more guys you can pick, because if you weren't taking Karlsson, you just kind of waited till the 5th or 6th round. We don't do that anymore. And honestly, defensemen, because of how vital they are to the power play, are a lot more. I'd argue they're a lot more central in a fantasy hockey strategy. I usually try to take 2 relatively early to kind of linchpin my team, and then at the end you can kind of build around. You can kind of take your shots later, but I definitely try to get 2 clear PP1 defensemen for sure early.
I think my strategy usually is I at least try to get one of the higher-ish end guys to an extent. So maybe if a Yossi's available, I'll try to grab him at that point. And then I'm okay with my second one not being as great, but again, I think for me it's I'd rather all my defensemen be at least on power play 1, unless the last one's on a really crappy team / power play, then maybe I'd consider going a little bit out of the box for maybe a guy that gets a lot more hits and blocks if I'm just trying to win those. But for the most part, your fantasy strategy is going to fail if you don't at least have. I want to say 3 defensemen on power play 1. That's at least the way I see it. Your fourth one can kind of be I'm not going to say a liability, but it doesn't have to be power play 1 defenseman, but I think you need at least 3 decent ones.
Yeah, for sure. And again, I think there's like I said before, I think there's so much more of a central part of your strategy, and you need good quality defensemen, and you need to like honestly target them relatively early if you can, depending on the value.
Yeah.
The other thing too is, so the way we kind of break this down is, again, tier list similar to the goalies. Again, the main categories, because everyone's leagues will vary, but I think the most standard ones we look at, like I said, goals, assists, points, power play points, shots, hits, and blocks. And the way we look at it, we kind of do in a couple other intangible things we look at is a durability. How many games do you play? Because a fantasy, again, volume is the name of the game. Are you power play 1? Like, where are you on your team's power play? Because if you look at a lot of defensemen, their percentage of their points that come from the power play is pretty high. Like, a lot of cases, it's 30%. There's some seasons defensemen have 50% of their points from the power play. So being power play 1 matters, point blank. The other thing too is
the whole thing about power play 1 versus power play 2. Well, the whole thing about power play 1 versus power play 2 is I think power play 1's out there on the power play, at least generally when I watch games, they're out there for the first minute, maybe minute 15. So that power play 2, I don't want to say the power play 2 doesn't matter, but you have 45 seconds, and of those 45 seconds, typically when power play 2 comes on, the puck is usually in their own zone because it's usually when the other team's cleared and they're going for a change. So realistically, you only have 35 seconds of power play 2. So basically, you need defensemen on power play 1. It doesn't matter if they have any sort of power play time. I hate to say it has to be power play 1, but it really does have to be power play 1.
And the other thing too is when you're on power play 1, you're paying with the best forwards on your team, most likely, right? Because usually now a lot of teams have shifted to the 4 forward, 1 defenseman, and it's their 4 best scoring forwards usually, right? So that's the other aspect.
Or it's like
as well.
Or it's like 3 and then like the 1 net front presence, like the one guy that just kind of causes havoc in front of the net. But still, exactly. 3 pretty good forwards usually. So.
And the other thing we look at is like team situation and prospect pedigree. So like, what's the team? Like, if you're on a team that's an elite power play, a team with elite scoring options, onside power play, or just a really good supporting cast, tend to value that higher in some cases when deciding between 2 guys. Also, for younger guys, what's your prospect pedigree? Like a guy who has power play 1 that maybe was like a top 15 pick, I'll look at a bit more than a guy who randomly grabbed the role last year and kind of went on a hot streak to end the year. Kind of, again, because teams value that differently too, right? How many times teams will always give chances to guys they draft in the first round more than other guys. That's just the way it works. So.
Yep. I mean, I'd partially joke I'm not going to say sunken cost fallacy, but at a certain point, it's like they just don't want to accept that the first round guy they drafted isn't that good, right? And I think another one we want to look at too is how secure they are in their position in terms of how secure is their power play 1 role. Because if there's multiple other guys on your team that could battle for power play 1, it is a fantasy nightmare to deal with. We'll talk about some of these other cases in a bit, but if there's 2 or 3 guys on a team, or even 2 guys on a team that are fighting for power play 1, it's almost a pain in the ass because you can't theoretically hold both or more of them. But then you don't want to be the one that has one guy and then your opponent, somebody else in your league has the other person. And unfortunately for you, it's the other person that grabs hold of power play 1, right? And now you have to drop whoever you have, and they're essentially worthless, right? So that's another thing you might want to keep in mind as well when you're drafting your defenseman.
I'd argue it's even worse than goalies, just because at least with goalies you can get them and get the volume and be fine. You can't do that with defensemen. You're just wasting a roster spot if you're carrying 2 guys on the same team. Like, it sucks. So no, I 100% agree.
Yeah, with the goalies, you can just be like, okay, if I just need saves, just get somebody on one of the worst teams. Hope they face a shit ton of shots. That's okay. Sure, their goals against average might suck, but if I'm already losing in those categories, you can kind of play that, right? Whereas if you're trying to get defensemen that score, it's hard to be like, oh, let me pick up this guy on the waiver wire. He has no power play time, but I gotta hope that he gets an assist or a goal. It doesn't work like that, sadly.
Well, the other thing too is, like, if I'm holding 2 goalies and I'm unsure who the number 1 is on the team, I can have both because I'll just get the 82 starts. It's not the same with defensemen. And the other thing too, you'll notice when you go through a fantasy season, the amount of like rosterable defensemen dry up substantially as the season goes along, where it just becomes a lot more difficult than, like, say, 4. I think obviously goalies.
Forwards, you can always find an occasional forward that moves up to power play one, whether or not it's due to injury or something else, right? It's easy to find one or two guys here and there. It might not be on the best situations, but at least you can maybe grab a guy that might.
Or there'll be a center, because centers are always available.
Centers are always available, yeah. But defensemen, I think the one example I can think of was last year when I was looking for PP, like I think for defensemen that were on power play one. I think there was maybe one guy at the time, and that's because I think it was Alex Vlasic at the time, just because I think Jones got hurt. But apart from that, it's the only time it ever opens up is because of injuries. Whereas at least with forwards, teams do shift the forwards in their power. I notice they shift the forwards on their power play a lot more. Typically, they'll try one or two. One of their two spots aren't usually secure or like injuries, so you're more likely to be able to grab a forward on PP1 than, for example, a defenseman on PP1 off the waiver wire.
Well, and the other thing too is on a power play one, there's 4 forwards, there's 1 defenseman.
Exactly, yeah. So there's more positions for forwards.
All right, so yeah, we'll get started. We're going to do our tier list. This is pretty in-depth, but again, not going to be 3 hours. So we're going to get started here. Just let me know when you're ready, and we'll fire it up.
Yeah, I'm just going to pull up the tab. Hopefully And let's hope this time I have all the pictures, because if I don't, again, I'll probably get roasted in the comments for...
I love how some of the heads are just so much bigger for some reason.
Okay, so for context, for example, so this one's Noah Dobson for those who aren't good with facial recognition. For some reason on NHL.com, they don't have a picture for him. On the Montreal Canadiens page.
Probably didn't take his Habs team photo yet. Probably.
Yeah, and then some guys that's Clefbaum too. Most of them have the ones that have the black background. That's the NHL.
We have Oscar Clefbaum on this list.
Wait, what the heck?
Is that Klingberg? You mean?
Oh, I think that's that's Klingberg. Yeah, that's Klingberg's
okay.
photo. So I had to reuse Klingberg's photo at the time because it was just I don't think he has his Sharks. No, not Sharks. Yeah. Sharks one, right?
Yeah, Sharks.
Don't think he has his Sharks one yet too. So those are the two that don't have their NHL.com photos.
I was gonna say, man, I thought Oscar Clefbaum was really good when he played, but if you're drafting off for Oscar Clefbaum in 2025, man, you might have been under a rock like the last 10 years almost.
I'd probably joke they've been in a coma the last 10 years. That's probably more realistic.
Yeah.
You just woke up and was like, oh, our fantasy draft's tomorrow. Yeet.
All right, so we'll get started here. We'll just cut to the chase. So, tier 1, this is the best. Very simple. These are the 2 best defensemen I think in fantasy hockey. I don't need to beat around the bush here. It's Cale Makar and Quinn Hughes.
Yeah, I'm bad with the. Oh, sorry. I know he's not in sure. I guess I just can't shift it up right away. It's kind of annoying. Thanks for making the tier list 11 tiers, bro.
Again, we try to keep it in depth here. So the thing is, these 2 are the best defensemen. We looked at our sample size of 3 years. They're number 1 and number 2 in points. Cale Makar with 248, Quinn Hughes with 244. Points per game, they're the only 2 over 1. Cale Makar is 1.14, Quinn Hughes is 1.07. Now, they don't give you a ton of banger categories, but they give you a ton of shots. So they give you goals, assists, points, power play points, shots. Cale Makar actually does give you at least a block a game as well, which is nice. And again, to me, they're the 2 best defensemen by far. And they give you, honestly, forward 1 level upside at the defenseman position, which is just so valuable.
Yeah, I think the reason, again, I think we have them in this order, I think, as you stated, because I think Makar does at least give you a bit more bangers. I think that does make a huge difference, especially because, for example, for us two, we're in the same fantasy league, but I think SJ's in another one, from what I remember, because we always talk about goalies in that other one. But anyways, I think, again, the points edge between the 2 of them, I think it's very close. I think if I had a look, it's a 4-point difference, although I will say Makar has played 11 less games in the last. I think this is a 3-year sample size, so 11 less games in the past 3 years. But Makar has the slight edge in points. But the bangers, again, if you look at the bangers, I think it's 153 hits versus 71, and then 354 blocks versus 193. That is a huge difference.
And the thing is too, Quinn Hughes is officially here now because before he used to struggle with shots on goal. Up until 2 years ago, he never hit over 2 shots on goal per game, which for me is was kind of an issue. But last 2 years, 2.43 shots on goal per game, 2.82. I remember last year being if he's going to do this consistently over 2.5-ish shots per game, he's, to me, a clear tier 1 guy. He's clearly there. I would take Makar over him just because the supporting cast is better on Cale Makar's side. Even though he does get hurt a little bit more. Again, having McKinnon, having Natchez, having a probably healthy Landeskog on that power play, and the amount of minutes Jared Bednar plays as top guys also plays a role for me as well. Both of those things matter. These are the 2 guys where I think these are the only 2 guys I'd take in the first round. I think and I don't know if you'd agree with this. The top 4 forwards to me are McDavid, Draisaitl, McKinnon, Kucherov in some order, right?
Yeah, that's and then and I think you honestly after those guys, you're okay with taking a defenseman in the first round. I think
Yeah,
after
like
those,
5 or 6, I'd have no problem taking Kale and Quinn Hughes like back to back there. I think you should honestly, you might as well just seal up that power play 1 position.
I'd actually go back to that argument you mentioned with the Carlson, Bufflin, and Campbell one from a few years back. Like, whereas you had a 30-point gap on the next guy, it's not as drastic as a gap nowadays. But again, I still think it's like a 20. It's probably like a 20-ish, 20, maybe even like 15-point gap over the next defenseman if you get one of these two. So I think that sort of gap is enough to justify taking them in the first round.
Yeah, like minus Werenski, the gap between. Well, I mean, Hughes only played 68 games, but like, yeah, the gap between even Hughes and Dahlin, who was in 4th, is like 8 points, despite the fact that Dahlin played 5 more games. So yeah,
I'd also argue with Werenski too. Yeah, we don't know if he's going to repeat last year's performance, right? I think that's part of that too. But
well,
I mean, if he does,
we'll
then
talk
the gap's
about that.
big.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in the next year. But these are the 2 clear tier 1 guys for me because I get the track record of performance, I get the level of performance, I get a pretty well-rounded, again, goals, assists, points, power play points, shots on goal. With Makar, you get a little bit of bangers. With Hughes, you don't, but it doesn't matter as much with the production. And these are our clear tier 1 guys without question. Only 2 guys I would take in the first round. Was there anything you wanted to talk about these guys further? Or?
No, I think I honestly, I'm trying to think. Okay, actually no. I was gonna reference a funny saying, but I'll probably hold off on that. But I think these 2 are the clear cut guys. There's no argument. You can't pick anybody else over these 2 guys.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to tier 2. So tier 2 is the other studs. These are guys who I'd be perfectly fine with these as my number 1 defenseman. I'm just not taking these guys in the first round, but they're all really good choices regardless. Number 1 was the guy who finished 2nd in Norris voting last year, Zach Werenski. Realistically, on talent, he's just as good as the other 2, I would argue. The only difference is, 1, durability with him has always been an issue. It's never been a question of what he can do. It's always been a question of how healthy he stays. And the second thing, too, is like, this was one of his first years in the stratosphere of the Makar and Hughes conversation. Is it sustainable, or was this kind of like a one-off where maybe he's not 82 point guy, but maybe he's more of a 65, 66, which is still really good, but it's just not on that same level. So those are the only questions I have regarding him. I'm not as concerned with the supporting cast because Columbus was really good. Again, I think they were 10th in expected goals for. Their offense 11th. Has a lot of young upside, I think they were 11th, guys.
But yeah, close enough. I mean, I think their offense as a whole is just really good. And I do expect a lot of their younger forwards to take a leap. Like, I think guys like Fantilli will also take a leap. So I think if all your forwards are also going to take a leap, I don't see how Werenski's offense can go down. Yeah. And I think the other thing too with Werenski is he's always he shoots I think he does shoot a decent he shoots the puck a decent amount of the time, and he's one of the few defensemen that is actually capable of 20 goals on a pretty reasonable scale. Like, I think most of these defensemen, it's a little bit harder for them to reach 20 goals. I think he's one of the 3 essentially that I can always kind of expect to be around the 20 goal range too. And goals from
like last year, his career shots on goal is 2.8, I believe, and like last year, an absurd 3.68 shots on goal per game for Zach Werenski. So, like, again, absolutely crazy. And if he does it again this year or does something similar, he's easily going to be in tier 1. Just need a little bit more of a track record because you're talking about a guy who went from 2 years ago was 0.62, last year was 0.81, and then, granted, the 0.62 was in 13 games, but now then went to a point per game. Again, just need another year to be in that echelon with Makar and Hughes. The other guys in this tier, I think he's one of the most underrated defensemen in the league. Rasmus Dahlin, he's really good. Like, point blank, he's one of those guys. Even though they have Owen Power, who's also a number 1 pick in his own right, they've never had any consideration of taking him off the power play. Last year he was 0.93 points per game. 2 years ago was 0.94. He's around 2.74 shots per game, and again, he gives you around a block and a hit. He's just really well-rounded. And there is some upside to Buffalo that they can be better offensively.
Yeah, I think a lot of this will depend on how good Buffalo is. Because I think if the rest of the supporting cast gets better, I do think his point. I think theoretically his points should, I guess should spike to an extent. I guess in terms of hits, like he's been in the top 10 for hits for defensemen in the last 3 years, right? So you're not just getting the points. Yeah, because I think one of the problems with defensemen sometimes is you either get the ones who just don't get a ton of points and then their peripherals are still kind of meh, or you get the defensemen that score a ton but they don't give you very much coverage with the hits and blocks, or you just get the guys that can't score to save their life but then they just hit and block for days. I think that Dahlin's kind of like it's not the perfect mix, but it's like he's a very balanced kind of defenseman for fantasy purposes, right? He'll give you a little bit of everything, and again, the production. I think you mentioned. I think last year was at point. You said 0.93, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then for the last 3 years, he's been a 0.862 points per game, right? Yeah. So he's been very much up there. I think he ranks. I want to say 7th among defensemen in this 3-year stretch for points per game. So with him, you're always going to get a ton of points.
6th actually. But yeah, no, exactly.
6th. Okay, whoops, my shoe.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So the other guy here, Josh Morrissey, this guy's Mr. Consistent. I mean, again, we talked about over the last 3 years, he's 4th in total points. You just don't think about it because he's on Winnipeg, but he gives you, again, he's a bit of everything. The last 3 years, 0.97, 0.85, 0.78 points per game, over 2 shots on goal, over a block a game. He's on one of the best teams in the league, and he has a lot of offensive talent on his power play between Scheifele, Connor, Velarde. Even though Ehlers is gone, that's still a quality power play. And they've had him, he's their catalyst on offense as well. And you could tell Pionk, I remember they tried Pionk at power play 1 instead of him for a bit, but it just, the last three and a half-ish years, it's been Morrissey the entire way. He's, to me, like one of the safe, again, knock on wood, he's one of the safest picks I think you can make. And he's also no durability issues with him. Like, he's played 79, the last 4 years, 79, 78, 81, 80 games.
Yeah, I think with some of the other defensemen, like even like for example, like I would reference like Hughes and like Werenski, right? Those guys, as elite as they are, they've missed some time. I think Werenski in particular, I think only played 13 games that 1 year. I think Hughes only played, let's say like 60, I think 66 last year, 68. I can't remember the exact amount, but I think with Morrissey, you're going to get at least 70-something games. I think the only time he was injured was, again, the playoffs, but that doesn't really matter for fantasy purposes, right? Because you just need him healthy for I think the first, I would say 3 quarters, or I guess 80% of the regular season. So that's all you kind of need him healthy for, essentially.
Yeah, he's just like he's a really safe floor guy. Again, have no issue with him. He doesn't have the upside of, I don't think, a Werenski, Dahlin, or even Evan Bouchard, who we'll talk about next. But if you just want a guy that's, no bells and whistles, that you can kind of plug in and expect around, I want to say like 60 plus points with consistent peripherals, like he's the guy. All right, moving on to the next guy. We'll talk about him, the Bouche Bomb himself, Evan Bouchard. Again, durable, yes. Hell of a shot. Although I'm surprised he's never hit. He hit 18 goals in 2023, 2024. I'm just surprised. Like, honestly, with the quality of his shot and the amount of times he shoots, there is the potential for close to 20 goals. Like, it's not unheard of. And he's on a power play with McDavid and Draisaitl. Like, that's enough.
It's weird because I almost want to put him. I almost sometimes want to, like, it's not that I want to put him higher, but it's like, maybe it's just me, but like when you're playing with arguably 2 of the, like, would you say top, like 2 of the best, like 3 players in the league, I almost feel like sometimes production should be like higher to an extent, right? Like, is it just maybe like feel a little?
No, I 100% agree. Like, it's weird that his max points in a season was 82, which is really good, but it's like when you're playing with those guys on the power play, and that power play is so lethal, and even at 5-on-5 you're playing with those guys, like the amount of gravity McDavid takes up alone probably should be more consistent. But at the end of the day, you have him. He's going to shoot a ton. You're going to get a ton of power play points just because of the team he's on. And again, the durability has been pretty good. He's not a big hitter, but he'll block around, 1 block a game. Like, again, perfectly fine with him as my number 1 defenseman. It's just, I think he's one of those guys that has the upside. It's just we haven't seen it yet.
Also, I think that, like, it's funny because it's for fantasy purposes. You don't really care about his defensive gaffes either. Like I don't know if anyone's ever watched Evan Bouchard.
No one gives a shit about that here.
It's funny because like you watch him play and you're like, this guy's either getting a shit ton of points or you're looking at him and you're like, what the fuck is he doing? But I think for fantasy purposes, unless you have plus minus in your league, I don't think a lot of leagues now have that. I think that's the only thing you can ding him for, maybe, because if he makes all those boneheaded plays, like, it will lead to a bunch of minuses that you probably don't want to deal with. But again,
he still has a plus 14 last year.
Yeah, I think for sure. But I think the idea is, like, with how many points he gets, like, only being plus 14 feels I think kind of speaks to the amount of gas he has. But again, like I said, he'll put up the points. He has a hell of a shot, which kind of surprises me because he has a 6.6 shooting percentage. Like, it's just kind of weird. It feels like it should be high. I guess maybe part of it comes with because he has a booming shot. He's prone to missing more, but like with that kind of shot, right? You do hope you get more goals out of him, right?
Yeah, and again, he's not just a power play merchant. He was like 6th in even strength points last year, so it's like he's not, or I think tied for 5th or something like that. Like he's good on both ends. It's just I think the shooting on scoring upside comes from the power play when McDavid takes sucks in the defense and then is able to kick it out to him, and he's basically can move in and rip at will, and you see that all the time with the Oilers. But he's the guy I think that has the most upside in this tier for sure. And then the last guy, we'll just go over Victor Hedman. Look, like I know he's older. I think is he close to 40 now? Let me pull this up here.
Dude, he's not that old. Like he's Tavares' age, same draft year, right?
Man, he moves. Sometimes I'm not gonna lie, when he's on the ice, he moves like 34. What am I saying? Sorry,
bro,
close to 35, but like
6 years off.
But he is so consistent year in and year out. Like. Okay, let me read over his points per game for the last like X amount of years. 0.91, 0.82, 0.77, 0.83, 1.04, and 0.83 2 years in a row. 1.04, one down year with 0.67, 0.97, 0.84 for a decade almost.
And like the
he's
last
just
3
been
years,
producing.
last 3 years he's been. I think the last 3 years he's been 0.82 points per game. But like again, like what you're going to get out of him essentially. You're going to probably get 0.8 points per game. You'll get a decent amount of shots. He's had 500. He's had 534 in the last 3 years. I think my math is kind of crapping out on me at this point. Funny because you'll get around 178 shots a year, which is about again you're gonna get the 2 shots a game, which is what you roughly at least want with your defenseman. He gives you a decent ton of like hits and blocks. So he's had basically 200 hits in the last 3 years and 371 blocks. So you're gonna get more. You're gonna get more than a block a game. You're not gonna get more than a hit per game because he's not much of a hits guy, but you'll still get a decent chunk of hits. He kind of just gives you, I don't want to say everything, but like you kind of get a little bit of everything with him essentially.
He's just one of those guys where if you just want someone steady, he's kind of the guy. The only fear with him is again he is 34, so it's like is there a decline coming? But the other thing is like it's not like Moser is ready to.
Yeah, he plays on such a good team too, right? And
yeah.
like no one's gonna take his power play like one spot. I think there was only 1 year where someone took it. I think it was the 1 year that Sergachev took it from him. But then obviously they got rid of Sergachev too, so it's not like he's not really a threat anymore to take it. And then again, like you mentioned, Moser's not a threat to take power play 1 from him. Exactly. And the team situation in Tampa too, one of the best team situations to be around.
I mean, he's gonna have Kucherov, Hagel, Point on the same power play. Like, what more is there? Even if he's not, the only thing is I don't think he has like quite the goal scoring upside at this point in his career that say like Bouchard, some of the other guys in this tier like Bouchard or even Werenski.
But yeah,
he's not like a Bouchard, Werenski, or McCarr. Yeah, he won't have that upside, but he's really steady. And if you take him again, unless there's an age-related decline we're not seeing yet, I think he's fine.
Yeah, the only thing I also would say too is if you're going to take him, he's probably the defenseman this year that gives you I don't want to say the least amount of shots, but I do think out of all the guys in this tier, he probably has the lowest shot total in the last 3 years. So you won't get as many shots with him like compared to a Werenski or a Bouchard, right? But again, he'll give you a little bit of everything. He's super consistent. He's kind of just he is the safe pick, I assume. Like you just know what you're going to get out of him. Unless barring
he's one of those guys you almost forget he's there because you like just put him in there and you don't really ever think about it.
Oh yeah, he's just plug and play. Yeah, plug and play, and you never worry about it. I joke he's like Would you almost say he's like the Freddie Freeman if you think about baseball? Just like
Yeah,
playing
honestly that's what he is. He's the Freddie Freeman, or what Larry Fitzgerald used to be, right? When he played like for anyone that plays fantasy football, he's just you plug him in, he's gonna get his numbers. Do you ever remember anything game breaking? Sometimes no. Is it always
no,
like the sexiest? No, but who cares how you get there as long as you get there in fantasy, right?
exactly.
All right, those are the only guys I have in tier 2. There might be one or two guys next year that might move into this tier, but they all have question marks for right now. So for me, tier 1 is just like the highest upside, and also the guys who have already proven it at a high level consistently the last couple of years. Tier 2 is like you're not quite at tier 1, whether it's track record, team, just not having the same numbers, but you're still a really good a really good fantasy defenseman. Tier 3 is like these guys are studs, but there are question marks relating to them for different reasons. And because of that, we can't quite put them in tier 2 or tier 1 yet. So number 1 is Shea Theodore. Look, Shea Theodore is really good when he plays, but that's the problem.
I think that's his, I don't want to say that's his only problem, but like, man, he's always hurt, and it just pisses me off. Again, I've had him, I think 2 out of the 3 years I've had him essentially. And the thing that pisses me off about him is there's always going to be a chunk of time where he's going to be hurt, and you always know that you have to be ready to grab whoever like is kind of the next defenseman in line in Vegas. So in that case, it usually is. It's been Hannafin, I think, the last like 2 years.
Yeah.
So you're just always going to want to have him. Like I think in 2023, 2024, he had 42 points in 47 games, pretty solid. He had 57 and 67 last year, and then 41 and 55 in 3 years ago. But you'll notice a trend there. He missed 27 games 3 years ago. He missed 35 games 2 years ago, and he missed 15 last year.
Yeah. Like, that's the thing with him. It's the per game stats are really impressive until you realize how few games he's played compared to the other guys. And that's the real issue here. The upside is with I hate to say the upside is because Petrangelo's hurt, but because Petrangelo seems like his career is pretty much GG.
Well, I mean, it is pretty much. Like, I think it is pretty much. GG.
I'm trying to be nice, okay? I thought Landeskog was not.
They said he's unlikely to play again, so I assume that's pretty much.
Point being is he now pretty much has the power play to himself, because last year we were unsure whether it was Petrangelo, Hannafin, Theodore. I remember everyone took like somebody from that trio, and it was clear they went with Theodore from the beginning, and it was his. Again, I think he's great. If he could just stay healthy for like 2 years in a row, I'd have him in tier 2. It comes down to health, because he's a good player. He also doesn't quite have the shot upside of like a Werenski, a Bouchard, a Makara Hughes, but like he's around 2 per game. The supporting cast with Marner this year too should be really good. It just comes down to can he stay healthy, really.
I guess the other question mark is, I think like you mentioned, is the shots, right? Because over the previous 2 years before, he had 136 and 55 games. He had 105 and 47 games a year before. Last year was kind of the interesting year because he only had 128 shots in 67 games, and that is less than 2 shots a game. So I guess that is like maybe a one small question mark you could look at is there going to be a trend that maybe his shots decline, like the number of shots he takes declines? Because that is going to be a big issue if he doesn't take as many shots. And like you always want your defenseman to average at least 2 a game, and if he's not averaging 2 a game, like it is questionable. And again, one of the other things with him is he doesn't have the same kind of goal upside for defensemen, right? Like he's only had, I think there's only been 3 years in his career where he's gotten above 10 goals. In the last 3 years, he's had 8, 5, and 7. Now, if he was healthy for the full 82, could he get to 10? I mean, maybe. Yes, yes, but the problem is you're going to accept that he's not going to be there for the full 82 games, and you're going to accept for the most part that a lot of his points are going to be assists. So you'll kind of have to. That's one of, I guess, his other limitations is
you bake it into his value.
Yeah.
That's like he's probably a guy I wouldn't have first on this tier, but we're just talking about him first. The second guy on this tier, Jake Sanderson. I think this is one of the upside swings in this tier. He's really good. Like if you watch him play, he's a good player. Last year was his first year over 0.51 points per game, but 0.5 points per game, but he had the power play basically to himself. All the peripherals on this guy, like last year, 0.71 points per game, 2.44 shots per game, and nearly 2 blocks per game. He has power play 1. This Ottawa team feels like it's on the come up between Stützle, him. They also have sometimes they have Batherson and Giroux on the power play as well. Like it's a good situation. he's only 22, so there is upside here. I think if you're taking him, you're taking a swing on what he projects to be, where if he gets to around last year was a 0.71. If he gets to around 0.8 points per game with around 2.5 shots and nearly 2 blocks, that's a really good player. And I think with him, it's more of a projection. But I think he has, and again, the only question with him is track record, and we don't know what his upside is yet. Because last year was like his real first year on the fantasy.
Yeah, last year was kind of his first breakout year. Also, firstly, I'll apologize to the viewers because I took quite some time to pick out his picture. It is hard to pick out roughly about 40 defensemen worth of pictures to try to find the one you're looking for exactly. But with Sanderson, I feel like his PP1, like, his PP1 spot is probably safe for the most part. Like, I don't see... Yeah. Like, unless maybe you think Shabbat might be the only other person, but, like, I don't think Shabbat's showing enough to take PP1 from him, so his situation's going to be safe. You did see the spike in shots last year, so you're hopefully not as concerned about, is he going to have the same issues getting off that many shots? I guess the question mark, like you said, is the 57 points in 80 games, like last year being his first real breakout year, is he going to either stay around that range, or do you think he's going to, take off a bit further and maybe hit 60,
his question marks are...
points?
His question marks are track record, and because there isn't really one, and what his ceiling and floor is, because we don't know. But again, prospect pedigree, good situation, power play 1. I'll just put him here. Although again, he is more of an upside swing than some of the other guys we're going to discuss.
So I guess the question is, you want him above Theodore, or do you want Theodore above him, or would you say like at least Theodore has the better track record, which you would keep him above Sanderson? Because right now
it's tough. So I'm an upside swing guy. I take Sanderson because I know he stayed, like, knock on wood, at least so far, he stayed healthy. So I'd probably value that.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, 77 games, 79 games, 80 games, right? He's only missed 5 games, 3 games, and 2 games in the last few years. And those
I value that, and I'd rather take the upside swing. So for me, I'd have Sanderson ahead, but like I think it's fine either way. The next one here, Adam Fox. Adam Fox used to be tier 1, which is kind of funny we have him here. Like, there is value to be had with, when you think of, like, the ceiling of Adam Fox at one point was him and Cale Makar, the number 1 and 2 best defensemen in the league, right? And, I mean, the production's still there. Like, you look at the last couple of years, 0.85, 0.95, 0.88, 1.01, or basically point per game. And then last year, even though it felt like a down year, it was still 0.82 points per game. Still really consistent throughout his career. There are a couple issues. One, the lack of shooting compared to some of the other guys on this list. So you're not really getting, again, most of his production.
He's never been a 2-shot per game kind of guy. Like, I think even all those years you listed, like I'm having a look right now, 158 and 78.
1 year.
159.
And barely over. Yeah.
Actually, I'd argue that's not even. Okay, that's barely over. Yeah, that's 156. My bad. But like again, the 159 and 82, he's not at 164 shots that year to be over the 2. I think I'd say that the last year I think he actually got it. No, he didn't get it. 137. Okay, I'm off again. But yeah, essentially he's only had 1 year where he's averaged 2 shots a game, right? So again, a little bit of question marks there. And I guess the other question mark is probably the Rangers as a team. It's kind of like where they go.
So that's the other thing. For a guy, why you value shooters more is because, like, if at least worst case they can create their own offense sometimes through their shot production. Whereas, like, with Fox, it's going to be the supporting cast. And, like, the supporting cast has been jettisoned quite a bit. Now, they still have JT Miller. They still have,
Panarin.
They still have Trocheck. They still have Panarin. They still have Lafreniere's probably going to finally be on power play 1. There is a lot of potential for him to be above this tier. It's just, it just hasn't been to the level of the guys on tier 1. At least last year didn't feel like it. And it feels like it's kind of heading a downward trajectory. He still, again, doesn't have the shot upside of guys like Bouchard, Werenski, even Sanderson in this case, right? But the track record is such where I think you just have to have him here. But he's honestly, like, he's a fine, honestly, all these guys, again, fine number 1 defenseman. It's just they have more question marks than the guys above them.
I think you probably have him above Theodore, right? Just because, again, I think obviously the health does, like,
Fox is one of those weird guys where you feel like he's been hurt a lot, but he plays more games than you think. It's just
I think I have Fox against Theodore. Again, I think Fox has outscored Theodore in each of the past 4 or 5 years essentially, and again, Theodore's just hurt way more too, right? And Fox only misses I think Fox has only missed. He missed I think 10 games the year before, and then 8 games last year, and then like
Yeah.
3 years ago he played the full 82. And then even 4 years ago, I think he played 78. He only missed 4 games. So I guess the last 4 years he's barely missed. He maybe missed 10 games one year, and then the rest of those years he missed a couple, and that was it.
Yeah. And have you seen the Rangers decor? There's nobody taking power play one from him. Whereas
Yeah,
like they don't like no one. I don't think anyone is either. But at least Hannafin's like a quality potential power play one defenseman. There's nobody like that on the Rangers.
Also, I don't want to say this, but like there's always that risk. Like if Theodore gets injured, and let's say Hannafin plays PP1 and plays it really, really well, like once Theodore does come back, there's always so many question marks. As do you give it back to the guy that had it before? Do you give it to the guy who's running with it hot, right? Whereas, like, I hate to say this, but whoever the Rangers give it to in Fox's absence, I doubt they're running away with it.
No, they're gonna just do what they're gonna sign Eric Gustafsson off the scrap heap just to come play power play one for like for like 10 games until Fox comes back. That's what's gonna happen.
Well, I'd even argue the Rangers might just go 5 forwards, and they might just go Lafreniere, Miller, Panarin, Zibanejad, and then they throw like, I don't know, let's say like Will Cooley as the 5th one, or Trocheck as the 5th one out there. Honestly,
Trocheck, yeah, exactly. Yeah, maybe. All right. Next one here, Lane Hudson. Look. Lane Hudson's rookie year, really good. Now, there are some caveats to that, I will say. And it's not the defense, how good of a defenseman is he defensively. Like, we don't care about that for fantasy purposes. Look, realistically, he barely had over a shot a game last year. So while he had a ton of point production, while he seems to definitively be the power play one guy on a team looks like it's going to have I think it's going to have an elite power play between Demidov, Caulfield, Suzuki, Hudson, and you can put Laine or Slavkovsky on the bumper. And like you saw that sometimes in the power against the Caps in the playoffs, it looked gorgeous. It really did. But here's the reality. Hudson, most of his points are going to come from assists. He's not going to give you many shots on goal. And we don't have a large sample size. So, again, the question marks here are the sample size and just the lack of any shooting. Like, he's going to be one of those guys that's going to get you, like, if he gets 10 goals, you're ecstatic, I think. Because he doesn't have the shot production to really measure up to. Now, if he does have, like, a Quinn Hughes arc where he amps up the shot production, you're talking about a tier 1 guy. But for right now, without seeing it yet, I kind of have to have him here.
Also, the other thing, too, I'd point out is I don't want to say job security in a sense, but the Canadiens did acquire Noah Dobson, right? And Dobson is very capable of running power play one. So it's not that there's competition for him, but you do have to worry a little bit because there is a really good guy behind him that could just as easily take power play one and run with it, right? Because also Dobson, I think, shoots quite a bit more than like Hudson, right? So if Montreal wants a defenseman that shoots a bit more, they could just as easily turn to Dobson. Now, I'm not saying they're going to just take Hudson off the power play right away, like at the start of this year and just say, screw it, we're going Dobson. But I think you do have to be worried a little bit when you know that there's someone else behind him that could just take that job, right?
Yeah. Like, overall, like, I do, again, he's a great passer. His vision and skating are insane. It's just, I probably want a guy with more shooting upside as my, if you have to take me as your number one, that's fine. But you probably want a guy with a bit more shooting upside if you can. And again, you probably want a guy with just a little bit more of a track record. He's another upside swing, but I prefer Sanderson as an upside swing because while Hudson might have more points, Sanderson will help you more in the other categories and definitely have more goals.
Yeah,
like sure. To shoot almost one time a game only for a guy that holds the puck as much as he does is crazy if you think about it.
And also, I think the last point I mentioned too, the job security again, like with Sanderson, he's PP1 for sure. Hudson, he's PP1, but like you're always scared that there's always Dobson just lurking behind him, right? And if Hudson gets hurt randomly, let's say, and Dobson gets PP1 and just kind of takes it and runs with it, there's the real fear that when Hudson comes back, you might not if you're the Hudson owner, you might not have the PP1 defenseman in Montreal.
Yeah,
again,
for sure.
It's a really small thing to point out, but I do think that again that does make a difference in this case when you're picking between these two guys.
100%. Another upside guy here, one of my guy, Thomas Harley. So Thomas Harley's an interesting one. Hell of a shot. Like he basically didn't get power play 1 last year until Heiskanen went down. But when he took it, he ran with it. And his per game numbers are really good. Like, he almost had, despite only having power play 1, basically post 4 Nations, he still finished with 16 goals. And it's not really a fluke, I'd argue, because the year before he finished with 15.
Yeah, 15. Yeah, he had similar amount of goals, exactly.
He is only around, like, last year was his first, I think that came with the power play upside, but like last year was his first year around 2 shots per game or over 2 shots per game. But if you look at his shot, he could definitely amp that up because his shot's crazy from the point. He gives you a decent amount of blocks. The question mark is he going to be power play 1? Because we don't know. Because he got it when Heiskanen was down and he ran with it, but they have a new coach in Glenn Glutzon. We don't know if it's going to be Heiskanen or Harley yet. And he's another upside swing here. I think the upside's worth it potentially, but you have to bear that in mind when you take him because there's a lot of uncertainty right now, at least, as to what his power play role is going to be. But if he gets it, hey, he's on a power play with Mikko Rantanen, Roope Hintz, Wyatt Johnson, and Jason Robertson.
I think you kind of hit it on the nail, right? Again, it's going to come down to which between him or like Heiskanen gets the power play. Now, if Heiskanen gets it, even if you're the guy that owns Heiskanen, for example, you're not expecting much point upside, right? Whereas if Harley gets it, there is a ton of point upside with him. Because I hate to say it, but we've seen, I think obviously because you're a Stars fan, you've seen the power play with Heiskanen for all these years, and even with that much PP one time, he just hasn't put up the points, right? Whereas I think with Harley, like he's shown he can put up the points, and he's put up the points even when he hasn't had power play 1, right? And now that he has power play 1, like I don't want to say the sky's the limit, but it really is the sky. The sky really is the limit for him.
Yeah, for sure. Last one for this tier, Roman Josi. This is really just a health thing, honestly. Like Roman Josi's so good. I'm such a fan. Like it's 2 things. It's one, it's the issue against the heart issue. Because prior to that, he's been pretty consistent in terms of games played. And again, there was a year where there were 2 years at least where he was the number 1 defenseman in fantasy, or close to it, I'd argue. He gives you good shots. He gives you, up until last year, he gave you over 0.8 production. Like last year was his down year, still averaged 0.72 points per game. It's just the issue is health, and the supporting cast isn't as good as these other guys. But at the end of the day, I think he's still worth taking the swing on if you hedge on the health.
Yeah, I think the problem is the health thing is always the scariest thing with these kind of guys, like especially with Roman Josi. Like he's not like when he in the years that he was like the top, like the best, like arguably the best or second best fantasy defenseman. Obviously, he did play the full season, but you notice like in the other years where he wasn't, it was the years where he played 67 games, 53 games, like 48. I think that was a shortened year, so that was actually technically a full year. But so the 67 and the 53, right? So it's when he does play, he's really good. When he's hurt, that's kind of the issue. And I think there are question marks as to whether or not that last year's production is a sign of things to come, right? Because Nashville, we kind of know that the team situation again just hasn't been great, right? Even with all the guys they signed, they kind of just the team as a whole plummeted. So we don't know if Yossi's production is going to kind of slowly is going to slow down with it. So there's that question mark there. And then I think the health, like you mentioned, I forget what his exact condition is, but I think I believe it's when you sit up, like I think it's something about his heart rate just spiking or whatever. I don't remember exactly what it is. But again, heart problems are something you can't, like, it's something you have to take seriously, right? So so you have to they say he'll be ready he'll play this year, but they haven't exactly mentioned, if he'll be ready to start the season or whatnot.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting tier because again, there's Fox who could be a tier 1 defenseman potentially, like at the end of the year. Like it's possible. Sanderson, Harley, and Hudson are real upside swings. Theodore and Josi are kind of the health swings. But could any of these guys finish as number 1? Like maybe not Hudson because of the shooting, but like if you told me any of these guys finish as top 3, top 4 defensemen, like I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest.
I guess in terms of order for the list, so we have Sanderson up there and then Fox there. Would you have Fox above, like, I guess in terms of, and to finalize the order?
I think this tier is fine. I'd have Fox maybe above Sanderson, but like you can, like I think Josi having power play, I'd probably put Harley on the back behind Josi, but I think this tier, I think it's fine. Like these guys are fine just as is. Yeah.
I was debating putting Josi ahead.
To me, it's just a hard tier because of the question marks are also different with these guys that like I'm okay just leaving it like this and moving on.
like this, like with Hudson, it's shot totals. With Yossi and Theodore, it's kind of the health issues. With Fox, it's kind of like the combination of shooting and supporting cast, and then Harley is like I guess the deployment, right? And then Sanderson is like is like sample.
What's
size,
his ceiling? We don't know.
Sample size ceiling, yeah.
All right. Moving on to the next tier. The tier 4, I call it the good old guard and the Russian. So we'll start with the good old guard here. We'll just throw all these guys in because they're all kind of the same conversational pieces. So Erik Karlsson.
Yep. Okay. Looks like I found the picture.
Similar name but not related. John Carlson, aka the Secretary of Defense.
Man, I'm slow with finding these pictures. Do you spot is? Oh, there it is. Okay. Whoops. I'm not. That's slow. Okay.
Dougie Hamilton. AKA Teach Me How to Dougie himself. Drew Doughty. Sorry, Drew Doughty's picture is the most identifiable by far. But
yeah,
basically all these guys...
You saw how quickly I found it, essentially.
all these guys kind of fit the same... They're the older guy where they've kind of had the same kind of production over X amount of years. You know what you're getting from them for the most part if they're healthy. The issue is minus Karlsson. The issue is age with these guys. They're all kind of they're all definitely in the later stages of their career. The second thing too is minus Erik Karlsson. All these guys have guys nipping at their heels. So Dougie Hamilton has Luke Hughes. Drew Doughty potentially has Brandt Clark.
Yeah.
John Carlson, there's Jakub Chychrun. And again, Carlson's the exception here. I think all these guys are fine. I probably want one of them as my number 2 defenseman. And they're different things, right? Like, Carlson's the higher upside as a point producer, but he has outside of Crosby and Crosby and Rust at this point, it's a declining supporting cast. Karlsson has a pretty good supporting cast, but I mean, as long as he has Ovechkin there, he has a setup partner. Karlsson doesn't have the point upside, I think, but he's a little bit more well-rounded than Karlsson, where like he shoots enough, and his blocks, he's always been a near 2 block a game guy. And Dougie Hamilton shoots like a motherfucker.
And then I guess in the case of Doughty, I think with Doughty, he kind of gives you a hit and a block.
Balanced.
He's the balanced approach.
Balanced.
The problem is he's the least production out of, I think, all the other 3 guys. And there are some question marks with Drew Doughty, right? Because he only had 17 points in the 30 games he did play last year, right?
For sure.
And I don't know if the production decline is something to watch out for. Also, the shots on goal with Doughty can be a bit of an issue. Like, he doesn't average. Mm-hmm. He typically has an average 2 shots a game. And like last year was even worse, right? Like, I think he averaged only 1.5 shots a game. I think roughly 46 shots on goal. And then again, the health thing too, because he was coming off basically, was it the ankle? I think it was the ankle, right? Basically a broken ankle essentially, or something like that. So again, he has probably the biggest health question mark. Is like, how healthy is he, right? Whereas at least these other guys are healthier to some extent. And I do think the supporting cast for the other 3 guys are a lot better than, I guess, Doughty's in LA, right? Because as much as I love a Kopitar, he's not, Kopitar is not really a high offensive player. Kempe's, I guess, their only real good offensive player. Byfield still has question marks as to what the kind of steps he'll take. And then their 4th power play slot is usually either Lafreniere or anybody on that team, essentially. Question marks there, right? So I think Doughty probably has the worst supporting cast out of the 4, I'd argue.
So of these guys, I'd have Karlsson first because I know he's there's no competition.
Which Karlsson?
Erik Karlsson.
Okay.
I'd have him first just because I think there's no competition. Even though supporting cast isn't great, I know I'm getting over 2 shots per game. He's always going to be a cat. Like, he's been on teams with he played on a Guy Boucher Sens team and was still like a point producer. I mean, as a defenseman, which is crazy, but he's still going to produce. Again, it's not going to be to his peak, but these guys are all going to be your number 2 defenseman, ideally. I'd weirdly have Hamilton ahead of Karlsson because I know. Actually, I don't know. Hamilton and Karlsson's a tough
I feel like John Carlson's job is a little bit more. It's a little bit more safer than like Hamilton's or Luke Hughes. That's the one thing I'm worried about because like I hate to say this, but I feel like the Devil's coach just has a boner for Luke Hughes at times because the amount of times he's gotten PP1 and done nothing with it.
Nepo Baby Hughes, yeah.
Nepo
Baby
Hughes,
okay.
exactly.
I have Karlsson there because I think again you get close to 2 blocks per game. At least he'll give you over 2 shots, and outside of a year or two here and there, he has the health that Hamilton doesn't, which is another factor as well. Like Carlson's been pretty durable.
Also,
compared
I'd
to
argue,
Hamilton.
I'd also argue John Carlson has had similar like production error calls in the last year. They've both been around 50 points for the both of them, right?
Yeah.
So, like, I think just one of them maybe like that one of them's role is more secure. Plus, I also argue apart from the 2022-2023 year where Dougie Hamilton had 74 points, his production just hasn't come close to the other two above him essentially.
That's fair. Yeah, so we'll keep it at these four for now. And then the last one for this tier, Sergachev. Now, I'd rank Sergachev ahead of Doughty himself, for sure, like no question. The issue with Sergachev... So Sergachev does have power play 1. He's on a good offensive team. I mean, he's going to have Gunther. He has Cooley.
He's gonna have so many options, like forward wise he can play with, right? It's basically what is it? It's Keller, it's Keller, Gunther, probably
Cooley, Peterka,
Cooley, Smalls, Peterka. Like he has options for days. Like there's
basically like and the only thing with him is again not much of a shooter. He's never averaged over 2 shots per game ever. He's like he gives you a decent amount of blocks, which is nice, but again the lack of shooting hurts him. And then the other thing too is he's only been over 0.7 points per game once in his career. Even last year, like as you know, with as much talent as Utah has, he was still only 0.69 points per game. So I couldn't like put him in his own tier. So I kind of had to lump him in here with these guys. I'd have him ahead of Doughty, but again, less so than the other guys. But if you want to take the upside swing in this tier, you can take him ahead of these guys because there is like, while he's not I don't think he's ever going to be a 2-shot per game guy. Like the quality of talent might increase his point totals.
Yeah.
Potentially. So, I mean, it's there, but I'd have these guys ranked like this. Yeah.
I think with Sergachev, I'm trying to pull up Utah's lines right now as we speak. But I think with Utah, I don't want to say there's not anybody that can really take. I guess you could argue Dursey could take PP1, but like, I mean, Dursey had the PP1 I think before Sergachev came in. Sergachev kind of took it from him, so I don't see Dursey taking it back. So I'd argue his role is is also one of the more secure ones. I'd argue like he's probably the one with the most secure, or one of the guys with the most, I guess, power play 1 security for sure.
Yeah,
and I think that's another important factor to keep in mind when you're drafting. And I think this is the order we'd like to have them in. So Erik Karlsson, John Carlson, 100%. Dougie Hamilton, Sergachev, and then Doughty.
Yep. All right, next here, the Steady Eddies. These are guys that aren't like great at one thing, but are good at like a bunch of different things. But they all have a couple issues with them. So we'll just throw them on there all at once and discuss them. Mackenzie Weegar.
Hope I grabbed the right picture. I think that's him. I only see one Calgary Flames guy.
Mo Sider.
Okay, this one's easy to get. The
Very
hair is
identifiable.
The hair is easy to recognize.
And Charlie McAvoy. Well, Charlie McAvoy has a distinct hair. Well, also the jersey helps.
The jersey helps is very distinct to McAvoy.
So a couple things with these teams. One, all these teams suck at scoring. So that immediately hampers all their upsides. But what you do get with these guys is you get around 0.5 to 0.6 point per game and amazing peripherals. So Sider last year, and this has been a consistent theme through his career, he gets close to 2 shots per game, but he gives you over 2 hits and over 2 blocks per game. Weegar does the same. Although in Calgary, he's been shooting a bit more, which is nice. But yeah, Weegar, last year, 2.75 hits, 2.37 blocks. And McAvoy's kind of the same, where although his hits and blocks aren't the same, but he, actually with McAvoy it's kind of weird actually now that I think about it, because like he's definitely the worst of these three, because one, he doesn't he's had years with more points, but the blocks and hits aren't the same, and neither are the shots. So I'd have him the worst of these three. And again, the supporting cast in Boston is declining substantially. Weegar and Sider, you can flip-flop. I'm not privy to one or the other. Like, the Flames can't score to save their lives, but honestly, actually, I guess maybe you'd put Sider ahead of Weegar, just because I think Detroit's offense is better. Like, at least they have Raymond.
I'd have Sider over Weegar just because, like, again, I think the blocks and hits just having. I mean, I think they're similar-ish, but like I'll bank on the Detroit offense being a little bit better. Although I will say, like, Weegar's health is just like crazy. Like, he's missed only 2 games in the last 3 years.
Yeah,
like,
he's
gonna play.
rock.
Yeah,
He's a
and I will argue that Uyghur does shoot a bit more than Cider, because Cider I don't think you mentioned Cider averages roughly around 2 shots a game, but he's never actually, I think apart from his first year, he hasn't ever hit the 2 shots a game mark since. So a little bit of question marks with his shooting, and again, he's only eclipsed 50 points once, whereas Uyghur's Uyghur's only eclipsed it once too, but I think Uyghur still has higher points.
If you're focused more on the peripherals, take Uyghur. If you're focused on the point production potentially, take Cider. But be warned with Cider is that there's guys like ASP. I don't think Edvinson's a scoring kind of guy, but there's guys like
I don't
ASP.
think Edvinson would take PB1. No, so I don't think Edvinson
but
would take PB1.
There is a guy like ASP that could potentially if he like comes in and breaks out. So just be aware of that. But for now, I think they're all fine. They all clearly have power play 1. They're on bad offensive teams, and they'll give you steady. They won't give you amazing scoring production, but they're balanced. And I think these guys are like, if you have like a Makar Hughes or a guy like Hudson, like if you take Hudson and then take Uyghur, like that's a really good 1-2.
Yeah, because I think what helps is because Hudson doesn't give you much of the peripherals. If you have Uyghur to kind of balance that out, it's kind of like, I don't want to say it almost sort of balances out between them, but it really does, right? And I think when you mentioned with Cider, with his deployment, the Wings technically have Eric Gustafson. So they can always just shove him on PB1 if they really don't like him. So there's always that little worry. And then you mentioned ASP, for those who don't know, Axel, Sandy, and Pelika. I mean, I'm not sure if he's going to make the team this year, but if he somehow does make the team, he is a very dynamic, like kind of offensive, or not offensive defenseman, but like he's a very dynamic defenseman who could.
And that's the thing with Cider. You don't see that offensive dynamism that
he's just a very solid, steady defenseman, and you never have issues with him. And then I guess onto McAvoy.
He's German Mackenzie Weegar, which isn't a bad thing. Like that's a really good, valuable player to have on an NHL roster. Like, and
then I think the other thing with why McAvoy is one of the worst is also McAvoy probably has the worst health out of all 3 of these guys.
Yeah,
like he's missed 32 games last year, 8 the year before, and then 17 the year before that. So
and Mason Lowray is there. I mean, he's not amazing, but he's there. All right, tier 6, the wild cards. These are the guys who could swing this drastically. Zeev Buyam, he's going to be power play 1 on Minnesota. Minnesota badly needs a power play quarterback. They're probably going to shelter his minutes 5-on-5, so that does curb his upside a bit. But if he gets power play 1 and sticks with it, and I think you have a guy who could be as high as a number 2 defenseman for fantasy purposes, which is great. Luke Hughes, again, we talk about it. He just always gets shoved on power play 1 somehow. And if he's on power play 1 with that supporting cast, he's going to produce. And when he was on power play 1 last year, he did produce. Now, the peripherals are a bit lacking, but at the end of the day, at this tier, you're just kind of like the production you just kind of take.
Also, Hughes has the draft pedigree. Hughes also has the draft pedigree too. So I think that's the other thing there too.
And he has a brother on the team who's the franchise player. And
that also helps too. And I think the last guy you were going to mention is your boy. I'm going to call him your boy,
Miro Heiskanen. So the wild card is, does he get power play 1 or not? No, the thing is with Heiskanen, he's generally pretty good 5-on-5. Like if you look at his numbers, even without power play 1, I'd argue he'd still be okay. I mean, like he's always worst case, I think he'd be a 0.5 point per game guy even without power play 1. But it's a question of, does he get power? Because if he gets power play 1, you probably would vault him above, into that steady Eddies tier where he'll give you, although he won't give you as many hits or blocks as the other guys, but he'll give you around 0.75, 0.7 points per game and some shots. And he's just, again, a quality player when he's healthy.
I guess with the question of Heiskanen, I noticed, I was looking through his stats. He had that 1 year where he had 73 points in 79 games. Do you kind of think that was just kind of the outlier and that's not really?
Yes.
And
which is fine. Again, he's one of the best 2-way defensemen in the league, so I'm fine with it.
I think it does suck though, because I think for you as a Stars fan personally, you really did hope that was the beginning of and then I guess it didn't really work out. But I think with, again, like you mentioned, Heiskanen, you're gonna get 2 shots a game. You're gonna get at least a block a game. You're gonna get the hits have kind of fluctuated weirdly over the years, but that's kind of okay. And I think what you mentioned with Buyam is, I hate to say this with Minnesota, but essentially everyone on the roster for defenseman wise, they tried at PP1 last year, so it doesn't make any sense that even if it doesn't work with Buyam, that they would probably go with anybody else. Because I hate to say this, they've tried everyone else already, and it didn't.
There's nobody else.
So you might as well let the young dude who probably is their best shot at being a power play quarterback. Just kind of run with it. And then with Luke Hughes, I mean, Nepo Hughes, and the fact that he just gets PP1 regardless kind of has him in his tier.
I put Booyum ahead of all of them just because he has power play 1 to start. But again, these could fluctuate depending on what happens. All right, tier 7. At least they have power play 1, part 1. So am I the biggest fan of these guys? No. Should you be having any of these guys as your number 1 defenseman? No. But for now, they have power play 1, and that's good enough to be drafted. Shane Gostisbehere would be so Shane Gostisbehere is an interesting one because he's very dependent on the power play for his points. So if he doesn't have power play 1, he's almost borderline droppable, I'd argue.
Yeah. So I had him
last year he finished.
I can speak to this. I can speak to this because I had him last year, so I can actually best speak to this. But he essentially was playing bottom pairing minutes last year when in Carolina. So basically, he was power play 1, but he was on the 3rd defensive pairing. So I noticed like when he wasn't getting the power play points, he wasn't getting shots, he wasn't getting blocks, he wasn't getting hits. He really was, I don't want to say empty calories guy, but he was an empty calorie guy.
Power play merchant.
Yeah. So he kind of at one point I did consider dropping him. So
he was 4th in the league in fantasy points last year. I think last year of his 45 points, around 27 were of the power play variety. So basically over 50% of his points are on the power play. So that's the risk you take where they do have Nikishin, they do have Keandre Miller, who they signed to a long-term deal. There is the potential risk that if he's off power play 1, he's basically useless. No offense, but like realistically for fantasy purposes, that's what it is. But he has power play 1 for now, so he's here. Second one, Tony DeAngelo. Now, Tony DeAngelo is actually like, for a guy who might be your fantasy defenseman, like 3rd or 4th defenseman, was actually pretty good while Dobson was down, holding down fantasy, like holding down the power play 1 role. I think last year he was near, and bear in mind, these numbers are with Dobson.
Yeah, more than 2 shots a game. Yeah, more than 2 shots a game. He at least had a block a game. And I think he was rough. He was a bit above 0.5 points per game, essentially. Yeah. So he kind of gives you.
And that's with Dobson coming back and taking power play 1 at one point. So it's like, and the thing is, the advantage he has over Gostisbehere and why I'd take him over Gostisbehere is because there's nobody else. Look at this roster. Like, unless Matthew Schaefer is going to make the team and play as a 19-year-old, there's nobody else. Everyone else is a defensive defenseman on this roster. Next one here, John Klingberg. So this one's really iffy. Like, he has power play 1 for now, and he's on a team still with Celebrini, Will Smith, Tyler Toffoli. There's decent power play guys, but he could be traded midway through the year, similar to how Jake Wallman was last year. He's only on a 1-year deal, if I remember correctly. And this is kind of a projection because he hasn't really done anything of fantasy relevance the last couple of years. But he has power play 1 for
very
now.
Much, right? Like he played. I think he played 14 games with Toronto 2 years ago, and he played 11 games with Edmonton last year. He's played 20. He's played 25 games in the last 2 years, and he's played. If I do the math correctly, he's played if I do it right, 67, 14, 81. He's played 92 games in the last 3 years. Last 3 years. That averages out to about 30-something games a year, essentially.
Yeah. And then so it's not sexy, but if you want a guy who just has power play 1, you can take him. And bear in mind too, there is a potential that Sam Dickinson or Shakir or Mook take over the power play. Yeah, Mook Mahadine, I'm probably butchering that, but there's a potential that Mook or Sam Dickinson take over power play 1 as well later in the year. And again, there's a potential he gets traded, so that's another thing. But again, he has power play 1 for now. And the last one here is your boy Morgan Riley. Morgan Riley was not good last year, but even though they tried OEL on power play 1, there's nobody else. The shots were, I think, worst outside of his rookie year. Shots on goal per game were the worst of his career. Again, not hits were also the worst of his career. Blocks were around the same. It just wasn't a good year for him. But again, there's what they're gonna throw Simon Benoit on power play 1? No. So he has it. These are the 4 I'd have in this year. They're not great.
It's tricky too with Riley too, because the Leafs last year at one point just decided they'd go with the 5-forward power play. And I guess right now on Daily Faceoff, they do project him to have PP1. I think they would go Nyes, Tavares, Nylander, Matthews on power play 1. But there is the risk that I feel like if they realize the defenseman just not working, they could just go again 5 forwards again, right? And then essentially you don't even like there is no defenseman in Toronto worth owning.
Yeah.
And I think with Riley, you mentioned the hits, right? I think he went from 98 hits in 72 games 2 years ago to just 20 hits in 82 games last year. Like that's a crazy drop. Now I don't know if that has to do with injuries and not. I don't know if he was maybe like secretly injured. And you just don't want. Obviously, you don't want to throw your body around when you're hurt.
Secretly injured, but played all 82 games, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't know. Again, I mean, I hate to say this, but the hockey players they play through sort of anything, right? Like I don't want to.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to make excuses, but there is maybe he did have something that was bothering him to a certain extent.
Like this starts to be the tier of guy too, where if they don't have power play 1, you can just cut them and find the guy on the team that does have power play 1. I'd rank D'Angelo above all these guys because one, I know for sure he has power play 1, and there's no.
He'll probably play the most. He'll probably play the most minutes out of all these guys too, right? Because I think you mentioned I mentioned Gostisbehere's got third pairing minutes. Klingberg, I'm gonna assume while he gets power play 1, the Sharks probably don't want to play him on their first pairing. Yeah, like it looks like they have Mario Ferraro and Liljegren on their first pairing right now. So we'll say Klingberg gets an okay-ish amount of minutes, and then I think Riley by default. I think the Leafs will just play him a ton of minutes anyways, just because. Yeah. Not like the Leafs have any defensemen begin.
Yeah.
Actually, no, they might just go
guys are
Tanev,
amazing.
So he's not
none
first.
These guys are amazing,
but
yeah.
Sorry.
None of these guys are amazing, but they kind of are what they are. Like, again, I probably like D'Angelo the most of this tier, but none of these guys are really like, I'm not really chomping at the bit to these guys are kind of like third defenseman. You're like, okay, I kind of just want the guy who has power play 1. Let me just take this guy for now. And if he gives me half a season of good value, I'll take it. That's kind of where you're looking at. Last tier, pick the right ones. Sorry, next tier, pick the right ones. These are the guys where we don't know who's going to be power play 1, but like you kind of have to hope you get the right one. And it might change throughout the year. It might just be one guy the entire year. Just bear in mind that when you take these guys. So first one is defending Cup champs 2 years in a row. Seth Jones and Aaron Ekblad. Now, these guys are interesting. I think you can roster either and be fine if they're like your third or fourth defenseman, because Seth Jones produces peripherals regardless, and Ekblad still produces like decent numbers as well. And so I think you're fine if you have either of them as your like third defenseman, or in Ekblad's case, your fourth. I like Jones a bit better because he looked a little bit more dynamic on the power play, especially in the postseason. And again, the peripherals with Jones, you get around over 2 shots a game, over a hit, over a block a game. But I think either of these guys you can take and be fine.
It's actually funny because I think Daily Faceoff currently shows both of them on power play 1. I think their Florida's power play looks like
which is even better.
Reinhart, Barkov, Kachuk, Jones, and Ekblad. So, I mean, I guess this is one of the few cases where owning one of them is actually okay, because if they're both on it, then it's not going to hurt you that you don't have the other person. So like this is the one case I think it's okay that you have one and not the other. But I think you lean towards Jones, right? You're leaning towards Jones anyways, though, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think Jones is a bit more dynamic and of a shooter, which I think they'd kind of want. But again, you're fine with either. Other two, I'm fine with either. Brandon Montour and Vince Dunn. They alternated a lot last year. It ended up being Dunn to end the year, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
I think Dunn, like Montour's, if you want the shots, it's Montour. I think you take. Montour is actually a really good peripheral guy where he'll give you over 2.5 shots a game. He'll give you around a hit. He'll give you around a block a game. And he's another guy. I think you're fine taking him, even if he's not going to be the power play 1 guy, because he does so much peripherally. Vince Dunn, kind of the same. Last 3 years, 0.79, 0.78, 0.63. He'll give you over 2 shots a game. The shooting upside isn't as high, but he is a bit more of a playmaker, which I do like. The only reason I have these guys lower than Ekblad and Jones is obviously the team they play on. Like Seattle's just the land of the third line.
Yeah, the middest of mid teams. Like they don't have a lot of offensive like potential as a team, right? Mm-hmm. So it is going to hamper the production of both Montour and Dunn. And it's actually kind of funny too, because Montour used to be like a Panther, right? And like I remember when he was with the Panthers, like his production was just straight up insane. But like once he obviously left the Panthers, you kind of knew his production wasn't going to sustain, right? So
Still really good last year for a guy who didn't have power play one. Like last year, he had 41 points in 81 games in the shots. I mean, again, that plays. Um, all right, next one here: Jackson Lacombe and Olin Zellweger. So this one's even weirder because we got like very little track record between these two. Lacombe was really good last year, but for some reason they have
Lacombe has the better track record just because he actually had majority of the time on PP1.
and he was good while he was there. Yeah, like
Although I did find it funny
was,
they took him off for a bit. It was kind of funny that they did take him off. Although I don't know if that's just the Ducks coaching staff just being fucking idiots. Like I genuinely think the Ducks coaching staff.
So there's a couple of things with this one. Right now they have Zellweger on daily faceoff as power play one, but Lacombe last year 0.75 points per game, 1.79 shots per game, over a block a game. Again, as a third, fourth defenseman, that'll definitely play. It's just if he doesn't have power play one, it's tough. Right now they have Zellweger. They also have a new coach, so it's like who knows who Joel Quenneville wants as his power play one guy. And they still have Pavel Minchikov there, who is a former top 10 pick, if I remember correctly. So it's like we don't know who it's going to be. There is some upside to the situation when you talk about guys like Carlson, Leo Carlson in this case. When you talk about Kreider, who's actually, while he has his flaws, 5-on-5 is good on the power play, and guys like Mason McTavish, but it's just going to be hard. This is a wait and see for me. And then the other wait and see, I definitely don't want any part of until they figure it out. The Chicago trio of Artem Levshunov, Alex Vlasic, and Sam Rinzel. Look, I'm not touching these guys. Like, let the team figure it out because Levshunov has the pedigree. Vlasic
He's the highest,
kind of
he's the highest
showed
drafted out of both of them. He's the second overall pick. I think 2 years ago.
they passed on Demidov for him, right?
Yeah, essentially. And then Rinzel is I think is a first round pick from one of the previous drafts, and Vlasic's like a second rounder from a few years ago.
And we don't know. Heck, I mean, it could even be Kevin Korchinski, but I'm not. This is kind of a wait and see for me. If you have to draft a Blackhawks guy, I'd take the chance on Levshunov, but who knows?
Yeah. Always take the guy with the higher draft pedigree. Plus, I'd actually narrow it down between Levshunov and Rinzel. Like, I would kind of rule out Vlasic altogether because I'd rather.
But we just have him here.
Yeah.
Tier 9.
Maybe back to the Zellweger and Lacombe point too. I think if you want the better, the more well-rounded guy, you go Lacombe because Lacombe kind of gives you good hits and blocks. His shooting is the only thing that's a little questionable because he doesn't get 2 shots a game. I think Zellweger is the guy that will shoot a bit more. I think he did average more than 2 shots a game, but then obviously not having power play one, and then his production wasn't close to Lacombe's. But I think the edge, probably have the edge probably goes to Lacombe for the time being, but you do have to wait and see who gets PP1 because maybe if Zellweger does get PP1, maybe his production does spike in his, and then suddenly, he obviously much better value than Lacombe, right? So
all these guys are kind of just hoping to pick the right one, but you're okay. You feel a little bit bad, but you're not as distraught if you miss on Donner Montour or Ekblad or Jones. You still have a quality guy, which is you have I would say a rosterable guy, which I don't know in the other cases. Tier 9, at least they have power play 1, part 2. Cam Fowler. He's in a tier by himself. It's not sexy, and there's a real risk that Broberg ends up taking power play 1 at some point. But last year, while he was with St. Louis, at least his 51 games with St. Louis, 0.71 points per game, 1.39 shots per game, 1.14 blocks, and he has power play 1 on a team that has dynamic offensive talent. I mean, is it sexy? No. Do I think he'll be 0.71 the entire year? No. But he has it.
Again, I think the biggest thing you have to worry about is Broberg. Like, there is the risk of that Broberg just kind of takes PP1 from him. Like, that's the one I'd be scared of the most. I'm actually surprised that even before they traded for Fowler, that they didn't just play Broberg on PP1 because they kind of tried to rolled with Falk for the longest time, despite the fact that, I can speak for this because I had him in fantasy. He was just putting up goose eggs every single. I think there was a 15 game stretch where it was just pure goose eggs, despite having PP1.
Yeah.
So I have to assume that there's a chance that Broberg takes it from Fowler, but I mean, at least given the 50-ish games that I think was the 50-ish game, the 51 games that Fowler did play, in St. Louis, the production was good. I mean, the shots on goal wasn't super great, but everything else otherwise was pretty solid for him, right? So at least he has it for now. Yep. Just got to make sure you keep an eye on Broberg on the waiver wire because as soon as Fowler loses it, you got to be ready to pick up Broberg.
Yep, which cuts us to high end. So tier 10, second last tier. High end number twos. These are guys where if the other guy ahead of them gets hurt, they could immediately vault to like a first or second defenseman in fantasy hockey. So Devin Taves. So here's an interesting stat with Devin Taves. He's one of the few guys I think you could roster, even though he won't have power play one, because interesting stat. So in 2023-2024, he was 10th amongst defensemen in even strength points. And last year, he was 5th amongst defensemen in even strength points.
It's actually weird because, like, I think with Taves, like he's been, apart from last year, he's been a pretty consistent 50-point guy without power play one, and like he gets you a block a game for even there were some years even that he even got you a hit per game too. So he was getting you like a block a game, a hit per game, like roughly like 0.5. I would say 0.55 points per game. His shots were actually okay. Like even there were some years where he even averaged 2 shots a game. So like he can give you somewhere in the very close to 2 shots per game, like at least a block a game, maybe a hit per game if you're lucky. And then like again, you'll get roughly 50-ish points. So like he's just very solid to own. Plus, like if Makar does ever get hurt, he's the first one to get power play one.
As a fourth defenseman, he's great. Like he's kind of a plug fourth defenseman in a good way. I mean, because like you plug him in and again, the health too, you don't really worry about it. He's pretty durable. The other one here is Noah Dobson. Now, if Hudson ever gets hurt and he has power play one, he vaults to near the top. Like again, probably vaults to the second tier of this list. But his peripherals are insane for a guy who, like, even if he's not scoring, will produce so much otherwise. So last year, which I'd argue was a down year for him, obviously at 0.55 points per game. Still, 2.76 shots, 1.77 blocks, like 0.8 hits. That all really plays. And, like, he's going to be on a good team. So even if he doesn't have power play one, like, the peripherals should be enough that he's in that Devin Taves tier for me, where he's still, like, rosterable, but just obviously not as, like, a first defenseman like he was 2 years ago, more like a fourth one this year.
And I think out of all the guys too, like he's the one that has like I think out of all the guys in this tier, he's the one that's probably had the most points in it like a season. So like he has that, he can find that other gear if he needs to, right? Whereas with a lot of these other guys, they're kind of capped around 50-ish points. Whereas Dobson had that one. Obviously, he had PP1 that year. He put up 70 points. But you know that if he ever gets PP1, maybe because like maybe if Montreal decides they prefer a guy that shoots a bit more on PP1, like the moment he takes PP1, like his point totals will probably spike. And with that power play in Montreal, you know, like you're kind of praying for that with him. But they're obviously with how well Hudson played last year, you probably know that he won't get PP1. At least I'm talking about Dobson in this case.
Yeah, exactly. Philip Broberg's the next one here. He has a chance to get power play one, so he's here. Peripherals aren't great, but if he has power play one, it's something.
Well,
Jake Wallman.
He's the one that has the best chance to take power play one off the guy that currently has it. Because Cam Fowler is kind of more of a doesn't shoot very much. Like he produces points, but like Fowler's obviously a lot older and Broberg's the younger guys. Like I do see there's a like actual like a window of opportunity that Broberg takes it. Like obviously Taves is not taking it from Makar. Dobson doesn't take it from Hudson just because, you know, the same coaching staff and like Hudson was really good in that PB1 role. Mm-hmm. So, but then Broberg definitely has a real shot at taking it.
Yeah. Wallman, the peripherals are really good, but he's not taking power play one over Bouchard. If Bouchard ever gets hurt though, and Wallman's the power play one, like that value skyrockets. Neil Pionk, same idea. And
waiting for if
Noah
Morrissey gets hurt, he takes, and then Hannafin,
like Noah Hannafin's interesting because you know he's gonna have like around 35 games at power play one, so like that kind of just puts him above. But yeah, same boat. And the last tier, this is my sure, I guess. Like, don't draft any of these guys. Like Jamie Drysdale.
I'm gonna put in brackets here all Flyers just because. Oh, whoops! I spelled it wrong. Flyers.
Don't take a flyer on these Flyers. Like Jamie Drysdale, Travis Sanheim, Cam York. Jamie Drysdale has to be like the worst player for fantasy purposes. Like
okay, I can speak this because I had him. He was completely useless for me. Couldn't block. Didn't really hit because like he was when he was drafted, he was supposed to be like a dynamic offensive defenseman. Most of those guys don't really do well peripheral wise, but he has not been a dynamic offensive defenseman in the NHL. He barely puts up points. Like I remember just dropping him and I was like, yeah, I'm not even going to take a chance on whoever has power play one.
He's a career 1.34 shots per game for people that think like 0.26 hits, basically negligible. Like it's just you're not really getting anything. Like you kind of Cam York has Drysdale has the pedigree, obviously, with in the league. Cam York has the team pedigree, and Sanheim's probably their best defenseman, which is really sad now that I'm saying this. Although I like Sanheim, like he's probably their best defenseman.
I guess if you really want to order this, it's Sanheim, York, and then Drysdale. I think that's probably the right order.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but can I say this? Between this and the bad between this and the bad goalies, like there's a real chance Philadelphia is the worst team in the league, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, you don't want Fedotov or Urson, and then you don't want their defensemen.
But these guys,
literally the only people you want to draft from the Flyers are here. I'm gonna pull up the Flyers roster really quickly, just because. This is a fun side note.
Michkov, maybe Couturier or Cates.
Konechny, Michkov, Tippett are and then maybe Zegras if he bounces back. But there's only four forwards on the Flyers you'd even think about taking. And then we talked about in the goalies, we wouldn't draft Urson or. I guess Vladar is their currently listed as their backup. Funny enough, it's not even Fedotov anymore. But then like we said, the defenseman. It's like we have them in the sure, I guess. So we wouldn't take any of these three, anyways, right? So that's like if you're absolutely desperate to get a power play one guy, and the other thing too is like I don't know if Rick Tocchet will blend. Like John Tortorella would switch his defenseman every 2 weeks, so that was another factor. Was like if you had these guys last year, you were like alternating every other week between one of them. And it's just not worth, honestly, it's not worth the time or energy. I'd rather just have Noah Dobson, Devin Taves. Hell, I'd rather have Noah Hannafin, honestly, than like worry about any of these guys. But again, if you want to take one, sure, go for it. Whatever. Yeah. Again, like we said, I'd almost label this here do not draft, low key. Like
we'll just leave it at that for now. But yeah. If you absolutely just want to like last round pick, you need to put in a defenseman, sure, whatever. But yeah, that's our defenseman. That's our tier list for defensemen. Again, I think it's a really good crop. Like within the first 3 tiers are all capable. First, like guys I'd be happy with is my number 1 D man, and those first 3 tiers are what 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. In a 12-team league, at least, unless one guy double dips early, you're all walking away with a capable... You should, in theory, be walking away with a capable power play 1 defenseman potential.
Well, I'd also say, too, like, if you're in a league... Again, we're at 12... I think ours is 12 teams, right? Our league is 12?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're getting at least 2 power play... You should at least have 2 power play 1 defensemen on your roster, typically. Because you're not going to be able to with the 32 teams, you're not going to be able to get like 4 or 3 unless some of the other guys in your league are bad drafters, maybe. But then for the most, you're getting at least 2, and then you can see if you can get a third one, and then the fourth guy is probably just probably one of the high end number 2s that we mentioned, most likely. Yeah,
like we have a keeper league, and most guys end up with 2 power play 1 defensemen, just to give you an idea too. So like, yeah, I think this is a really good crop. I think this is the way we tier this. Again, it's subject to change, but I think this is a good starting point for the year and a good starting point for when you do your draft. Just idea of like how you tier these guys. For me, the cutoff of guy I want as a power play 1 D man cuts off at tier 3. Then my second defenseman would cut off at least they have power play 1. And then tier 3, my third defenseman would probably be the pick the right one kind of guy. And then fourth defenseman are just like the high end number 2s.
Yeah, that sounds right. That makes sense.
Yeah, so that's those are our tiers. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, fairly in depth, not 3 hours, thank goodness. We kind of cut it off at 1:30, which is pretty good. Next time, I think for our fantasy pod, we'll do... Did you want to do left wings or right wings?
I think either or works. I think the problem is you can't do all the forwards at once, so we can... It's actually funny, because I think... You know what's funny, actually? Because we talked about this before, that like the right wing depth versus the left wing depth is just so drastically different. Like, there's just so many better right wingers versus left wingers. Like,
So let's do left wings next, then.
Yeah, left wings might be quick. Like, it might be like only one guy in like tier 1 and one guy in tier 2, and then it's like everybody else. That's from my preliminary like guess, like based on what I saw.
All right, in terms of so next time we do our fantasy pod, one of our fantasy pods, we'll rank the left wings, and then we'll probably do right wings. Then we'll end with centers, and in between maybe we'll sprinkle a couple like guys we wouldn't draft high as they're going closer to the year, and then a couple dart throws as well. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this podcast. Was there anything else you want to talk about before we sign off, Willy Dubz?
No, I think that should be all. We hope you enjoyed this, by the way. Like, again, we're big fantasy guys ourselves. So like, this is kind of like, we view this as kind of a way to help ourselves draft, but also to kind of help you guys draft. Right. So, and we hope that you guys all have your varying levels of success, or at least we hope you have successful. I hope this tier list kind of helps you draft properly and you guys have success in your leagues, obviously. Maybe not so much if you're one of the guys in our league watching this. Please don't watch this, JK. But otherwise, yeah, like I said, we do enjoy doing these kinds of tier lists for sure.
And it'll be interesting to see how it changes as the year goes. Maybe Harley jumps up to tier 1 or tier 2. Maybe Fox does. Maybe one of the guys. Maybe there's a guy we don't see on this list. Maybe Brant Clark jumps into a higher tier or something. It's all possible, right? Like Kevin Garnett says,
Yeah, sure.
Anything is possible. So, yeah. Like again, thanks for tuning in with us. I'm SJ. That's Willy Dubz. It's late on Saturday, so we're signing out.
Yeah.
We'll catch you guys later.
All right. See you guys later. Peace.